Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Not Just New Movies podcast, the show where we review a seemingly random film currently not in theaters. My name is Ben Pearson, and today we're going to be talking about Don Coscarelli's 1994 film, Phantasm III Lord of the Dead. Joining me is my regular co-host, Tyler. How are you, man?
Ben, have you ever thought that Robert Goulet's song Silver Bells was actually Silver Balls and it was a cry for help?
You know what? That thought has never crossed my mind, but now it's all I'm going to think of every time I hear the song. So thank you very much for that.
Screaming in terror when he sings Silver Balls.
I don't even understand it. I don't even get the reference. It's Christmas time in the city. I don't know. But it is December now, so happy December.
Hey, happy December. Well, no, the movie we watched this week, it features prominently some silver balls.
Oh my God. I can't believe I didn't make that connection. I feel like a total idiot. But yes, of course, this movie is full of silver balls flying around everywhere, and we're going to get into that very, very soon. If you're a first-time listener, welcome to this show. You can find all of our previous episodes at njnm.podcast.blogspot.com. And if you'd like to contact us, you can do that by email at notjustnewmovies@gmail.com. Tyler, I just checked this morning right before we started recording.
Oh, yeah?
It's dusty, man. It's there's no entries, no new email in that account. I feel like we haven't gotten anything that hasn't been a spam email in that account in many, many years. So if anybody wants to liven things up, freshen it up a little bit, knock off those cobwebs, notjustnewmovies@gmail.com is how to do that, and we will read your email on the air.
You can also buy the email handle from us. We'll sell it.
Right. Yes. It's very valuable, as you can tell. Yes, that's a great point. Okay. So I believe this is the fourth episode in our newest mini-series, which is called NJNM to the third power, which is, what was it? Superscript 3, I think. Mm-hmm. Covering movies that have the number 3 in the title or that are the third entry in a franchise. Before we get into our main review, Tyler, I think last week you introduced a new segment to the show. Do you have anything for us in that segment today?
Oh, it's piping hot. It's time for some hot tea.
Okay, so what do you got in the hot tea section?
Ben, has your tongue healed from last time?
Barely, just barely, yes.
Ben, this week the hot tea, I steeped it. Ben, why don't we pay Alan Dean Foster? Let's pay Alan Dean Foster. Have you seen some of these?
I have. Do you want to briefly explain this to anybody who might not know what you're talking about? I
think you might know more about it than I do, but my plea is just, Ben, pay Alan Dean Foster. There, I got it out.
Well, I appreciate the shining light on this situation. I have not actually read anything about this other than headlines, but my understanding is that Alan Dean Foster, who is an acclaimed writer who wrote Tyler, I think
Splinter of the Mind's Eye,
right? Is that
the Empire?
So these are books that are in the Star Wars universe. He was, I think, the person who wrote the. Did Splinter of the Mind's Eye come out before Empire Strikes Back?
Yes.
Okay, so he was technically the first person to create a sequel to the mega hit that was the original Star Wars.
Yep.
It was in novel form, but still, this book means a lot to people and was and is held in very, very high esteem. Alan Dean Foster has written a ton of different novels and novelizations of all sorts of different pop culture properties. Evidently he has not received any payment for, I guess, the residuals and stuff ever since the Fox Corporation was acquired by Disney. So I think that's the fan outcry right now is hey, continue to pay this man, for the work that he did. So that's my very basic understanding of the situation as it stands.
So he's done. So I think it was when they purchased Lucasfilm, because the books I think that are in the limelight are his Star Wars 2012 when they buy it in 2012.
Yeah, 2012. Mm-hmm.
So it's pre-2012 work, because then he went on to do the novelization for Force Awakens. So he's done recent work for them, but it's the residuals on the books that were produced pre-purchase.
In the pre-purchase era. Okay, I gotcha.
And Disney claims, of course, that when they purchased Lucasfilm, I guess they didn't purchase his contract with whoever. So they're well, it's not our job to pay you residuals.
Oh, boy.
And so the Science Fiction Writers of America, I think, is the guild that's kind of the united voice, and are saying that he needs to get paid some residuals until they can renegotiate what
Yeah.
the future residuals look like, which is probably like he says it's not a lot of money for them, but it is for him.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think the fallback is that if Foster can get residuals, then everyone can get residuals, which is of course what they're entitled to anyway. But especially with like digital, like Kindle editions, I don't know how, if his contract is 30 years old,
Right. It wouldn't
did
have
it even
factored
account
that
for
in.
it? Yeah. So it's some interesting. There's not a lot written about it, but what, like the Guardian, I think was the one I read it on. So hopefully, maybe it's still a little bit. The facts need to be drawn out a little bit. So we'll see. But for now, Ben, sip that tea. Pay Alan Dean Foster. Pay all the authors that you're may or may not be screwing over.
Right. Yes. Put some respect on the man's name.
I mean,
at
they're
the very
using
least.
Thrawn pretty hard, and that was one of his core creations in that 1991 Heir to the Empire featured Thrawn. So,
oh wow!
And then he rewrote a book about Thrawn, which I think is like the new continuity Thrawn or whatever you want to say.
Gotcha.
So they rely pretty heavily on his ideas. So it makes sense to throw a couple shekels.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess while we wait on that decision
shekels
to be made, I was just going to suggest that people, go out and explore, maybe buy some of Alan Dean Foster's books themselves, like the newer ones or something, maybe that they know that he's going to get residuals paid for or something. So anyway, all right, Tyler, let's just go ahead and jump now into our discussion of Phantasm III, Lord of the Dead.
Phantasm. The delusion of a disordered mind, a phantom, a spirit, a ghost. For most of his life, a young man has been pursued by a sinister force. Now he must learn the secret of the ultimate evil.
Now it is time for you to come back. To me.
And remember, if this one doesn't scare you, you're already dead. Phantasm 3, coming soon.
All right.
This movie kind of sucked.
So I was wondering what you thought about this. Okay, why don't you elaborate on that before I, reveal what I thought about this?
Well, I'm a huge fan of Phantasm 2, and thinking that every single Phantasm movie had the same kind of, I don't know, I must have watched Phantasm 2 at a certain time where it was just stuck with me. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that Coscarelli, I believe is his name, is really good with his camera work. He's really good with capturing an ambiance, but I have no idea what this movie was about and where it's going and where it's been. There's not really a mythology there like we've seen with like other slasher movies, I guess, that we've been watching this iteration. If damned if I don't know who the Lord of the Dead is. Is it Mike? Is it Reggie? Is it the tall man?
I think it's got to be the tall man.
But he's easily replaced. So anytime they need him, they just reproduce a new one. So there must be after
somebody
movies
pulling the strings or something.
Maybe there's a puppet master. Anyway, what did you think? Have you watched any of the Phantasm films prior to this?
I have not.
Okay,
so this is the one. So when we sort of cooked up the idea for this NJNM to the third power, part of the reason that I was sort of excited about doing it was because I had not seen several of the rarely have I seen any of the movies that we've discussed so far. And then for some of these, I have not seen any of the other films in the franchise, like Nightmare on Elm Street. We talked about that.
Yep.
And in terms of like Friday the 13th and even Halloween 3, all of the movies that we've discussed so far seem to be able to mostly stand on their own. And like you can they serve as like pretty decent entry points where if you were to jump straight into the franchise like I did, you might have a couple of maybe like lingering questions, but you can follow things pretty easily. And this one, this is the first time where in the first like minute and a half of this movie, I was like, oh boy, I was rubbing my hands together. I was so excited to talk to you about this because this is what I thought that this entire, podcast miniseries was going to be, was just me completely overwhelmed and like in over my head. I had no idea what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to watch a movie that way. I mean, it just is like a, pure experiment on my part, like just to try to see if I could peel back the layers of lore and mythology and whatever the hell is going on here and try to get to like just the basic relationships of the people on display. Like Reggie Bannister, the actor, plays this guy named Reggie in this movie. And I didn't realize until I was reading the Wikipedia entry afterwards that he was an ice cream man at one point. And I'm like, wait, the guy that we've been following, the like ostensible hero of this movie, was just an ice cream man? And like, I think there's one shot in the film where Mike has sort of a flashback and it like reveals that the tall man hates being cold because he walked past the open doors of the ice cream truck that Reggie was doing. And I'm like, this clearly came from a previous movie, but like the camera was so focused on the tall man and his reaction to this cold, which was not even that big of a reaction. I'm not even sure how Mike was able to make that leap, frankly. But like you see Reggie sort of in the foreground in a full ice cream man uniform. And I was like, wait, is that Reggie? Like the movie does not go out of its way to, reestablish, I guess, for people who had seen it before or seen the previous films, that was his occupation beforehand. And so he's just like this wandering, ponytailed badass kind of character in this movie. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy?
Well, the other thing you missed out on was Reggie had a family that the tall man destroyed in the first 2 minutes of Phantasm 2.
Oh, wow.
So but he gets over it real quick.
Yeah.
He's trying to hook up with this girl, the one whose scalp fell apart at the very beginning of Phantasm 3. He hooks up with her. I think a few months have passed, but still, he's very impulsive. He has like a one-dimensional brain. It's just 4-barreled shotgun, girls. That's it.
Yeah, that was very much on display in this entry as well. There's that super creepy, skeezy move with the queen bed that he pulls with the Rocky character later on, and he's just like, it's so tough to watch. He's just like, he refuses to take no for an answer, and she eventually handcuffs him. But
he's such a lovable loser, but still, red flag, pal.
Yeah.
What you may have missed was not much. In Phantasm 1, it's like Mike's a kid and Jody's an adult, still alive. And then it's very Friday the 13th, where every ending, at least, I haven't seen 4 or 5 yet, but every ending is like enough where you're like, uh-oh, they didn't make it out. But then the next movie, it's like, they made it out, I guess. And not much plot-wise changes in these 3 films. Like, it's always the tall man is digging up graves, going town to town, and they go after him, and someone goes missing. And they end up in like a mausoleum. But for some reason, I don't know, I really dig the vibe of these movies. And I know they have like a lot of cult following, but I think Phantasm 2 is still my favorite. I don't know about Phantasm 3. So I want to know how you felt, whether you thought that any of the maybe 60% of the movie was even necessary.
Yeah, so the film begins with this recap, which I found to be completely incomprehensible.
Sure.
and
Much like the
that's not
movies, like-
necessarily the movie's fault. That's more my fault. Like a recap is supposed to just be like a little refresher. It's not supposed to like detail, provide an explainer of what everything that happened. But I was like, very confused by all that. But I settled in. I was ready to take it all in, and then like the movie proper begins. Right after it sort of picks up at the end of what happened with the ending of Phantasm 2, I guess. And then almost instantly a car explodes, but the character of Mike, who was in that car, is totally fine. Like totally he's just he's like laying on the ground and like he seems slightly dazed, and that's it.
Meanwhile, his girlfriend is torn apart.
Right. Yeah. And so I was very confused about that whole thing.
He
so
must
instantly
have, surfed on her, like the wave of the fire explosion. Like he just surfed on her like a Ninja Turtle.
Yeah, I will say I was impressed with the quality of the explosions though in this movie.
Yeah.
Like even from the very beginning, like that car sort of turns a corner, like it disappears behind a little bend in the road, and then a massive fireball goes off. And it was clear to me that from like a production standpoint, they didn't actually blow up that car. They had like an explosion ready to go just out of sight. But still, like the fact that this movie, which I believe was released only in 2 markets, I was reading the Wikipedia page, it was like released in 2 random cities. What were they?
St. Louis and
Baton Rouge in May of 1994. I guess Universal had some sort of falling out with Coscarelli and some sort of conflict or something where they didn't want to release the movie theatrically, so basically it's a direct-to-video movie, but it performed very, very well. So for
Return of Jafar.
Yes. So for a movie that has, a budget of like $2.5 million or something, I thought that they did a lot with that in terms of the explosions, which, there are a myriad number of explosions in this movie. So
I thought the production value was really on spot. And I think it's the only DVD feature other than the trailer I watched was Balls of Steel, which was 10 minutes dedicated to the stunt driver that drove the pink hearse like off that rock. Remember that? And they went into so much detail about this particular kind of ramp that has like a little hook at the end, and it just catapults the car. And they're like, it's so dangerous to do. And this stunt driver's like Coscarelli's interview, and he goes, he came up to me, he was like, I'm gonna go 50 miles an hour off this ramp. And then a few days later he comes up to me, I'm gonna go 60 miles an hour off this ramp. And then like the day of, he's like, I'm going 70 miles off this ramp. And Coscarelli's like, hold on, let's make sure you survive. And then he like shows like the like where the cameras were set up, like they went back to the road on like Mulholland Drive, I think it was. And he said, he's like, the first camera is behind the telephone pole here, just in case like the car like went out of control. We thought maybe the telephone pole would like protect the camera. And then they were like, and then we had another camera here, so the car goes over the camera. And then we had another camera down here where the car landed. And he goes, look, there's still divots in the road from when this car landed here 24 years ago. Wow. And I was like, man, LA, you got some infrastructure problems. And he said the guy, he goes, he never let, when we were hearing the car go off the ramp, he's like, we never heard him let off the gas. He was just like piling towards this thing. And then they pulled him out. He was unconscious, and then he woke up, and they were like, all right, that's a wrap.
Wow.
And it was pretty amazing how, that minor little scene became like a DVD feature. It was pretty good.
Yeah, man. And I noticed during that, I think it was that moment that you're talking about, there's one shot where there's like a police car or something sort of off in the distance, like ahead of where the crash is, and it never appears in any of the other shots. And I'm wondering if if he was going so fast that he overshot the landing area, and that police car was not supposed to be in the in the movie, but he was just there like for safety or something.
Is it like the guy in jeans from The Mandalorian?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it is. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing.
Just a stormtrooper on his break.
Yeah.
Now, do they have jeans in the Star Wars universe, Ben? How can that be explained away somehow?
I saw. So you're talking about, I guess, in a recent episode of The Mandalorian, there's like a guy just like standing in the background who was a part of the crew, who clearly should not have been in the shot. And I think I saw somebody like screen cap that and say like, within the next 10 years, this character is going to have like an action figure and is going to be like, canonized in some way. They're going to come up with some way to like, take this little mistake and like pretend like it was intentional and like, monetize and market the whole thing up as much as possible. So while the answer right now may be that no, genes don't exist, I would not be surprised to see that they come up with a way for genes to exist in the Star Wars universe.
Just like Daenerys' Starbucks cup.
Yes, yes.
It comes with a posable Starbucks.
Yeah, exactly. So these flying ball things, these silver balls,
what do you think?
Is that like
scary?
the whole deal with the Phantasm movies? Are these in all of the films?
Yes, but this was the first installment that I believe they explain why they exist, and they actually contain the brains of the Tall Man's victims, which the explanation is very, I feel like it was like an afterthought, because it was overdubbed at some point. Remember the scene where they go, "We're heading west," while the camera pans east on the map? And they go, "Yeah, he goes town to town and he digs up the graves and he turns them into dwarves, and then the dwarves have the brains cut out and those go into the silver balls." So the dwarves they run on impulse, but the minds become killers.
Right.
And that's it. That's as deep as it gets, man.
What a plan. I mean, I never really understood what exactly the Tall Man was after, and I'm wondering if that was like established in, the previous two movies or something. But
kind of, and this is why I get a little frustrated, because they get so close to the line of where this weird sci-fi mythology begins, and then they always back off. So in the first movie, and you missed out on these, there's like a scene where Reggie, I think, falls into that. You remember that door he can pass through with the two metal bars?
Yeah.
So in the first one, they fall in and they see like the other planet where all these little dwarf guys go and become slaves, I guess. And then in part 2, they do the same thing, almost like a reproduction of the first movie, where they go through the door, they see the other planet, and then they're brought back in. So we just get a glimpse of what the after effects of the Tall Man's actions are. But in the third movie, they don't even bother with it this time. They're like, yeah, he kind of wants to conquer dimensions. But as far as like from a movie making standpoint, I guess this is like his idea of, because him and Sam Raimi are friends. So I wonder if like the Evil Dead franchise, which kind of hits on the same tones every movie, at least 1 and 2, I wonder if that's something that he just wants to tell this story in different ways. I don't know.
So you have not seen the 4th or 5th movie yet, right? Okay. Do you know what happens in those movies? Have you read anything about them?
Oh, man. Okay.
So I was
much like Mike.
Yes, I was looking at an overview of the Phantasm franchise after I watched this movie, just because I was very confused about the mythology and everything. Let me just say that you are in for what sounds like the most Tyler movie that I've ever heard of.
Excellent.
When you get to Phantasm Ravager, which sounds like something that you yourself would have created, and it expands on all of the things that you were just talking about in ways that I feel like are legitimately going to blow your mind.
All right, I'm psyched again, because I was I watched Phantasm 3 like a month or 2 ago, and I was like, man, I don't know if I could watch 2 more of these. And then we were going to watch it again for this podcast, and I had to watch it again last night because I could not remember. I knew it was a lot like 1 and 2, but I couldn't remember which parts were just in 3.
Yeah.
But it turns out I do remember a lot from 3. But yes, now I'm excited. I'm ready to finish the franchise.
I can't vouch for 4. I haven't really read anything about that one, but it really sounds like 5 takes things in a totally, insane direction, like even more so than like the truly insane stuff that we're talking about that happens in this installment. So,
I think that was Angus Scrimm's final film was Ravager. So, Ben, what did you think of Angus Scrimm as the Tall Man?
I mean, I really thought the only trick he had in his acting book was to squint one eye a little bit. That's kind of like
raise that eyebrow.
The whole move. And I guess they just were like, all right, this guy is maybe like a friend of someone, maybe Coscarelli or somebody. And they're like, he's tall. let's just do that. Like, you just kind of stand there and maybe like walk real slow. And, it reminded me a little bit of like Twin Peaks. Like, there's a giant character in Twin Peaks, and he like doesn't, that character, emotes a lot more than the tall man does, but just like the idea of having this towering physical presence, it seems it introduces something that feels slightly otherworldly. So I guess that is sort of, it contributes to that vibe that you're talking about that these movies have. But in terms of like the actual performance or the character or any sort of insight or anything like that, it fell on deaf ears mostly.
Yeah, I think he's appeared as the tall man in like commercials and stuff. So he's got like his following. But there's something about like, especially the first one, like the funeral home and like the funeral parlor, like it kind of does have like, if you've ever been unnerved by those places, like let's say you had to go to a funeral as like a small child and it's just like scary to be there. Like that, I think is put onto film really well because it everything feels so empty in these movies. Like I understand it was independent films with lower budgets, but still he tends to capture like an empty world, and then the plot is the tall man goes around and is trying to empty the world. So it kind of comes together in a weird way where it's like I can see somebody going, oh, this didn't make any sense, I don't like it, but then it's like if you just watch it, you kind of have this more so the I don't know, the strange little journey you go on with them. Even though it's balls to the wall ridiculous, at least it's got some tonal achievements that I think are well worth the wait.
Yeah, I think when we were watching Halloween 3, we were talking about it sort of in a negative way that the world sort of felt empty and like, it seemed like a budgetary limitation. And I didn't really feel the same. I mean, even though like you're saying the cinematic, what is on the screen in this movie does often feel empty. I didn't have that same sort of meta feeling of like, oh, this is because of the budget. Because they bake it directly into the story, it makes more sense and it feels more natural that way. So,
what was Rocky and her friend doing in that mausoleum, you think? You think they were robbing graves?
I have no idea. They really just sort of came out of nowhere. And I guess before they even get there, like, what is going on in Holtzville? Like, there's that weird gang with the wannabe Steve Buscemi guy who's like, it looked like too. It's like they clearly, it seemed to me like they were like, all right, let's get a Steve Buscemi type. And then like when he was like, hell no, I'm not going to be in this direct video movie. They're just like, all right, let's find whoever can be closest to him.
Hey, remember in Friday the 13th Part 3 where there was like 3-member gang in that small town? Let's do that, but for Holtzville.
Yeah, exactly. It reminded me a lot of that. And like this gang, kidnaps Reggie, and then they walk into this weird. Oh yeah, like super easy. They walk into this weird Home Alone situation where this kid is there, and he is just like. This is the moment I think where there was some mythology stuff and like the the portals and things like that in the beginning. There's that moment at the very very beginning of the movie where Reggie like points the shotgun up at the trees and shoots once, and then like 4 different Jawa creatures like fall out from different points, and I'm like, there's no way that blast would have hit all 4 of them. So there are moments where I was confused in the beginning of the movie, but this is the moment where when this kid Tim I think is introduced, this is where I really like started losing it. I was just like, what is going on here? What does this movie think that this character is? Because I couldn't tell if he was like supposed to be a highly skilled assassin or just really lucky. Because
when he shot that thing off the mailbox, my Riff Tracks mind was like he was aiming for something else. And he just happened to hit the. He's like, check that out. But I think he's the cousin Oliver of this franchise. When Mike was younger in the first movie, I guess they had to make Mike disappear for a while, so they brought the kid on, and I think that's just I don't know.
I mean, there's that moment where he like basically throws like it's the paint can moment from Home Alone, but he's got like knives on a dummy or something, and he flings that down the stairs. That doesn't actually kill anyone, but he hurls a a hatchet into the woman's forehead. So that's one death. And
just
then
like Kevin McAllister.
Right. And then he takes a frisbee with razor blades around it.
That one's my favorite.
Hurls it into the sky. And the two guys, the two villains, the kidnappers, are standing there, probably 30 feet away from him or something like that. And they just watch it as it flings into the sky, arcs toward one of the guys' necks. He doesn't put his arm up. He doesn't take a step back. He doesn't dodge or dip or duck or any of the D's in dodgeball. He just stands there and lets the thing slice his throat open and he dies. And then the Steve Buscemi character falls into a pit and gets shot in the head by this little kid who's 12 years old or something. It's
a dark world, man. You gotta survive.
Very taken aback by all that. And then he teams up with Reggie. And then they go to a mausoleum where they find Rocky and her friend, who gets her forehead drilled into by this silver
that's
brain
classic.
sphere thing.
That's classic silver ball. It loves the brain juices because I think it frees up for the yellow fluid that the tall man puts in there.
Yeah, real gross.
It's real gross stuff. I don't like body horror stuff, and a lot of this is body horror, but. Back to the frisbee with the razor blades on it. Pre-Xena, Warrior Princess, I believe, and as you know, Xena had the little silver ring that she could throw around. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Xena Warrior Princess, produced by Sam Raimi, so it comes full circle. They're good friends.
I will say that
what if there was a ring that could cut people's throats from 30 yards?
This is after Hard Ticket to Hawaii, the 1987 movie, which I believe had a similar thing, a frisbee with razor blades on it. So
was Sam Raimi or Coscarelli involved in any way?
I believe they were very excited viewers, but I can't confirm that. So,
I hope that's what it is. Like, we'll have them in an interview, and it's like, it was like when we watched that movie, Ticket to Hawaii.
Okay, so Rocky immediately sort of very easily becomes a part of the group.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Rocky.
Well, it just turns into a three-hander, and then it's just like, okay, now it's like, just a three protagonist movie. It's just a road movie with three main heroes now, and then it's so weird the way that it plays out, because like she's clearly not interested in Reggie at all, but every single one of his interactions with her is designed for him to try to see her as some sort of conquest. It's really really just a strange thing. So what do you make of the Rocky character?
I mean, she other than Reggie's appalling behavior, Rocky, I don't know, like she's hot and cold, man. She's nice sometimes and then mean, and then you don't know why she's sticking around and then she ends up leaving anyway at the end. And it was like one too many goodbyes from Reggie. Like Reggie's like, all right, man, take care. And she's like, yeah. And she like fist pounds the kid. And then she gets back in the car and Reggie's like, man, I'm going to miss you. Like, get back out of that car and give me a hug.
Yeah.
It's like, just leave.
Yeah. And then after she gets back in, then he goes back down into the window again. Like he leans back in as if he's got one more thing to say. And it's like, dude, just, wrap this up. What are you doing?
I just don't, I mean, I like that she's kung fu related, like that's her thing.
She carries nunchucks, by the way. We haven't mentioned that, and that's like her weapon of choice.
And she owns those silver balls with that nunchuck. That's funny how they like joust these things like every other scene. They have to think of new ways to take down these balls, and the kid will shoot it, and she'll use her nunchucks, and Reggie will like trip over something and land on it, whatever.
Yeah,
and like my favorite scene is when she shows up to protect Reggie against the zombie girl, and she hits him with the nunchuck before hitting the non-zombie girl. So then he goes down, then he gets back up, and I think the zombie girl hits him back down again. So like if you're watching Reggie during that fight scene, he's like knocked back twice by accident. And I was like, all right, I'm back on Reggie's side again. This guy's funny.
Yeah, I like the. I think my favorite thing was just like the sort of ridiculousness of like how these silver balls are just constantly like hurtling down hallways, and like they have these cool camera moves where it's like supposed to be from the POV of the ball, and I'm like, all right, this is all like interesting, low budget, like indie kind of filmmaking where it's like they're doing creative stuff. I'm on board with this, but then like the silver balls, which at one point bore through someone's head, like not only the that one body horror moment that we were talking about where Rocky's partner gets like drilled into it, at one point it's going so fast that it just leaves a spherical or I guess a cylindrical like hole in the zombie woman's head because it just travels so quickly that it just blasts straight through. So this thing clearly has the ability to to fly and to maneuver and to go at like insane speeds, but it evidently does not have the ability to do any of that at a height that's like less than 5 feet. Like if you just like fall to the floor and crawl around, it seems like it's just going to swoop, over the top of you and then turn around and do a big loop and then swoop over the top of you again. It just can't figure out how to go, down a little bit. And because it would be so much more effective if it could just do that.
Yeah. In the first two movies, the ball can like see stuff. It sees like a Terminator vision. It didn't really feature that in this film, but the camera work is throughout these movies, I assume, at least in the first three. Because I guess it wouldn't be scary for the tall man to be chasing them around.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like he seems like a physically imposing presence, but like I think that actor is just not like he cuts a good silhouette. I'll give him that, but that's kind of it in terms of the scare factor. So I think you're right. I think like the idea that like putting him in the frame too many times, even with somebody like Reggie, who is not like a Stallone or Schwarzenegger action star by any means, but if you have them share the frame too much, I think your mind as a viewer would start to be like, why doesn't Reggie just kick this guy's ass? Like, what is he doing?
It's so, like in part Nightmare on Elm Street where Freddy just kind of turns a corner and shows up and you kind of laugh. It's not really imposing anymore, but he can still be imposing, I guess. Now, Ben, back to our question. Who is the Lord of the Dead? So you're on Tall Man side?
I think so. I mean, he seems to be, controlling some sort of, like, he seems to be able to see through visions and like connect, almost like the Night King in Game of Thrones. Like there's that moment where I think it's Mike is like laying on a table and he has the ball on his head and he's sort of like getting like a download of a vision and stuff. And and the tall man is in that vision and Mike is just like observing. And then all of a sudden the tall man is able to sort of like see that Mike is standing there. And then like, it felt very much like the Night King, like grabbing Bran by the wrist kind of thing.
King Bran, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Again, put some respect on his name.
Well, what I wanted to, my counter argument is that Mike is the Lord of the Dead. And he, especially when he was laying on the table with that ball on his head, he was giving off a very Paul of House Atreides vibe, where he became the, hold on, let me think of it. The, Kazwak Shadrach.
Yeah, whatever.
Shadrach. And
that's a Dune reference for anybody who has no idea what we're talking about.
Dune reference. Get ready for Dune coming to HBO Max in 5 years. And so the tall man really wants him, and he wants him alive. So I wonder if like the Lord of the Dead is embedded in his inner being, and maybe that's why he's got like the parts already for. Like spoiler alert, he bleeds yellow and he has like a silver ball in his mind, in his head. And we don't know exactly what that means, just like every other Phantasm movie. And he runs off at the end. So we don't know until, I guess, Oblivion, where Mike ends up. So and this is, again, the theory that the tall man is easily replaced, but Mike cannot be destroyed. So
So that's why Mike is the Lord of the Dead. I mean, I feel like you could make a case that Reggie is the Lord of the Dead because he just like goes around killing people, or maybe the child, the kid.
He lords over that ponytail.
I mean, he's the one who really dishes out the most. I mean, I guess Mike or Reggie rather probably has a higher body count with that.
That's true.
Double-barreled shotgun or quadruple-barreled shotgun,
and he's a huge deadhead, so maybe that's why they call him Lord of the Dead.
The question I had for you is, do you know why the tall man wants Mike so much? Mike himself asks that question. He's like, why do you want me? And then, an hour passes or something, and like Mike is, in some sort of weird dream space or like caught in a mausoleum or whatever. And then he is like essentially like released and freed in a weird sex dream that Reggie is having. And he finally like, reappears in the natural world. But I never really understood why the tall man was obsessed with Mike. Do you have an answer to that?
I think it goes back to my theory that he's the Lord of the Dead. So that's why. No, I'm being serious.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think because he says at one point he's like, your being is gonna be what is unknown will be known. You can travel time and space, blah blah blah. And so that gives me the impression that Mike is some kind of chosen one, of course, and they need him to take over the planets, whatever, even though none of that is said. And yeah, I think that's why. We could be completely wrong because 4 might do away with all of this.
I was going to say, after you watch 4 and 5, please report back and let me know if that answer is ever actually satisfactorily resolved.
I guess we should talk reporting for duty.
I guess we should start wrapping this up. We should talk about the very end of the movie, though, because that is the moment where I just really burst out into laughter. Is like the moment where it's like it hard cuts to the end of the movie. Do you want to tell me what you thought about that scene and how the very end of the film played out?
When they go back into the mausoleum.
So yeah, they're back in the mausoleum. Right. Reggie, there's a moment where Tim is like, I think it was Mike or Jody. One of them told me to tell you that there's thousands of them. And Reggie's like, what the hell are you talking about? And then like the kid goes off into another room or something and comes back and finds that that Reggie has been pinned to the wall by a ton of these weird ass silver balls, and the tall man is like standing nearby, like in a room nearby, and Reggie he's up there and he's like, it's over, like leave me, run, get out of here. And Tim like goes for the gun and he's gonna try to, I guess, individually shoot every single one of the balls that are pinning Reggie to the wall.
He's gonna get thousands of bullets.
Yeah, and then as soon as Reggie says, "Get out of here, it's over," the tall man bursts into the room and is like, "It's never over," and then that's the end of the movie. Yeah. So like that situation is completely unresolved. I was like, I was just laughing so hard at that moment because it's like it's a cliffhanger, but it's like a Reggie hanger. Like he's the one who's like suspended in midair, and like you don't know what's going to happen.
He wished his name was Cliff, so that whole joke plays out.
Yeah, exactly. So, what do you make of all that?
Well, this is quite a trope in the Phantasm world. It's always you think it's over. And then the tall man comes back. You think the tall man's dead. He's never dead. And also you think Reggie dies at the end of every movie. He doesn't die. So prepare to see Reggie again in Phantasm 4 Oblivion. Nothing is ever what it seems, even like they say in the movie. Yeah. Because I think this director is having a lot of fun on these movies, and he wants to do all this weird, demented stuff. And I just love him. I love these low budget takes on this story, and he updates it every entry. So I got to give it to him. I've only ever seen like Bubba Hotep, and I don't think I've ever seen Beastmaster. So I wonder if these are his passion projects and those other movies are just like his big paydays. Mm-hmm. Even though Bubba Hotep, I feel like that was probably a passion project too. Didn't we watch that like 20 years ago?
You guys did. I was not there during that. But yeah, I think the
Bubba Hotep period.
Yeah, I was out at skip practice or something. Who knows? the more we talk about this, the more appreciation I have for this movie.
Yeah.
Like I came into this recording being like, I don't really know about this movie.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that I hated everything that was going on. I was just, this is like one moment where the experiment didn't really work very well.
Right.
Like, all the other movies, like I mentioned, sort of line up where they're like decent entry points, and this is not really that at all. And so I felt a little out of my element. But now that we're talking about it, I do appreciate a lot of the choices here, even though, it's ludicrous. It's totally ludicrous. But I can get behind some of this.
Would you watch the other entries now?
That's what I was just going to say.
Okay.
I feel like I might jump ahead just to the final one because the synopsis of that sounds so insane that I want to kind of see how that goes. I cannot imagine going backwards to the first two Phantasm movies because I feel like they're just progressions, right? Like this movie is slightly bigger than Phantasm 2, I imagine, right?
I really like 2. I would watch that one, but 2 feels like a remake of 1, a la Evil Dead. And 3 doesn't have that other dimension scene that the other 2 have. So I wonder if this would kind of be a good entry if it featured that a little bit, but because it doesn't, you have to watch the other ones. Maybe just 2 and 5, 2, 3, and 5.
We'll see. Maybe I'll get around. I'll jump around in this franchise at some point over the next decade, and maybe
oh wow,
check out and see what happens.
Very charitable of you.
I know. I apologize. My
I'll
apologies.
get to your movie in 10 years.
There's a lot of stuff to watch.
Is that what gets you screeners? It's like, I guarantee you I'll review this in maybe 10 years.
I have a request in for Phantasm Ravager, which came out in 2016, and I haven't gotten it yet. So we'll see how that goes. Awesome. But all right, I think that's going to bring us pretty close to the end of this review portion. Tyler, do you...
did you hear that Threegle?
Oh, the Threegle. Yes, of course. I almost forgot.
Dropped our little ribbon.
All right, review. So I think this might be the last time that we're going to read something.
Caught it with your face, just like that lady in that gold silver ball.
Yes. All right. So this review, this one-line review on the scroll that the
we got 2 episodes left, don't we?
Threegle. Yeah, but I think on the final episode, the Threegle is not going to appear and drop because the Threegle only drops something revealing what the what we're going to talk about 2 episodes from now. Is that right? I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't either. Oh, man, I'm confused now.
Yeah, this thing.
I should have never captured that Threegle.
we got to let it back out.
It's worth.
Yeah, it's very difficult to feed. But this scroll, it says Richard Schickel from Time Magazine. There's a quote here for a movie, or his review of a movie. It says, "An astonishing display of virtuoso cinema that is destined to take its place among the most vivid and freshly imagined fist-to-groin contests in the medium's history."
All right.
Wow.
Phantasm
so most of it, well, I don't think it's Phantasm 4 because that would not really work for this miniseries. But most of these Threegle entries, these quotes from reviews for movies that we're going to watch in the series have been pretty bad, been pretty bleak, painted a bleak picture of what we have to expect. But this one sounds like it could be pretty good. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what that film is. I just
remembered which one. It just dawned on me what film this is. Okay,
you and I know, and nobody else knows. So yes, tune in next time to find out, or maybe the time after that. I don't know how the Threegle works, but in any case, we're gonna have, I think, 2 more episodes of this miniseries, and then who knows what's gonna happen in this podcast. After.
There could be more if the audience is like, we need more Threequel talk.
Yeah, and if you want to do that, then you can email us at notjustnemovies@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Twitter, right? Is that where people can find you, Tyler?
At NJNM Podcast.
Okay, excellent. And then you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ben Pears. So let us know if you want more of this miniseries or perhaps a different miniseries. Maybe we can do a number 4 or some sort of other thing that doesn't have anything to do with numbers. But
or you could give us ideas for other limited series.
I'd love to hear what the listeners would like to hear about. So yes, do all that. Tyler, thank you once again for introducing me to the world of Phantasm.
Really welcome. It's been 20 years in the making. I've been trying to get people to watch Phantasm. Ever
All
since I
right.
saw it in like the WB movie Afternoon.
Oh wow, yeah. It actually feels like that's a
It's
perfect place
exactly
to
where
be
it belongs.
introduced
Yep.
to these movies. It's like that perfect. Oh man, that's really great. Okay, well, until you get a chance to check out Phantasm 4 and Phantasm Ravager, people can just check you out online. Hit us up on Twitter and shoot us an email if you have anything to say.
That's right.
Otherwise, thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you next time.